And welcome back. It is the 28th of May for the Maths 5 a day, and let's just go straight to the first one. So the first one is a circle has equation. Now, as you often see me do, I'm just going to write it down. So the centre is 6 minus 3, and the radius is equal to the square root of 9, which is 3. Okay, and then it says state with a reason whether this circle intersects the y-axis. Now, quick sketch helps me explain this carefully. You'd be okay with a good sketch. You can do it with algebra as well. I would note that 6 minus 3 means that, well, because the radius is 3, it means it's going to touch the x-axis. But it won't touch the y-axis because this is 6 across and the radius is only 3. So I would say the radius is less than 6, so no. And again, decent diagram, I should be okay. The other way you could do it is you could put, what should I do? X equals 0 into the equation, and you'll find out that it won't be a sufficiently large number. Next one, solve. Interesting. Okay. I think the clue here is this root 3. So I'm not saying it will happen, but I would suggest to you that all these probably divide by 3, which means I can get root 3's, which means I can then add these things together. So I'm going to start over here by doing the square root of 147. Now I happen to know that it's 49 times 3. So I know that is 7 root 3. And by the way, I'm now feeling a bit better. 675 is a little bit harder. So 675, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do a prime factor tree. So divide by 5, I think it divides by 25, but I divide by 5 first, gives me 135. Divide by 5 again, gives me 27. And actually at this stage, I'm just going to do 3, 3, and 3. Now remember what to do here. For each pair of numbers, I take out one number. So there's a pair of 5, so I take out a 5. There's a pair of 3, so I take out a 3. That leaves behind a square root of 3, which is the same as 15 root 3, which means I can go back to my equation. I can say that this is the same as x times 7 root 3 is equal to 8 root 3 plus, what did I just work out? 15 root 3. 15 and 8 is the same as 23 root 3. And x times 7 root 3, I kind of hope that might be a nice number, but it's not a nice number, is it? So therefore, x is equal to, well, the root 3's cancel, which just leaves me with 23 over 7. That's an okay question. Kind of hope for a nicer number, but I didn't get it. Simplify. Now, you may have heard me say this elsewhere. Because it says simplify, I'm kind of hoping this should simplify quite well, but let's give it a go. Now, what's interesting is we've got a times and a divide. So I'm going to assume BODMAS rules, do it in the order that I'm expected to do it. So let's write it all out. So it's going to be x plus 3 over x9 times x7, something cancels already, over x plus 6, times keep change flip. Now, before I do that, can I factorize this? No, bit of behind the scenes. The video paused there because I couldn't work out how to do it. And then the answer is no, I can't. So this is a strange question. I almost wonder whether it's actually an incorrect question, but I need to go with what I've got. I hoped it would factorize. I hoped it would factorize with a plus 6, and I hoped things would cancel. That hasn't happened because this doesn't factorize. So given the question I've got, it's going to be 4x squared plus 21x minus 24 all over x squared. And now we can do some cancelling. So let's move this up here. Not a lot of cancelling, it has to be said. So the 9 and the 7, so the 7 cancels with the 9, which leaves a 2. Let's write x to the 2. X to the 2 times x to the 2 is x to the 4. Again, in an exam, I would expect this to be much neater. So it's going to be x to the 4 times x plus 6 times x plus 3 times 4x squared plus 21x minus 24. Wow. Like I say, I think that was probably supposed to cancel, and it didn't. But that's okay. That's the question we've got. Question done. Next question. Factorize. Okay, this will factorize because it says it in the question. How would I think about this one? Well, first of all, I'd notice that these are minuses and that's a plus. So I know these are both minuses. Then this can only be a 7 and x because 7 only divides into 7 and 1. So the real question is this 8 and 2, 16 and 1, or 4 and 4? Now my guess is 4 and 4, but let's try it first. 7 times 4, remember I'm adding these numbers together to give me 22. 7 times 4 is too far away. So it's not 4 and 4. So therefore I think it's 8 and 2. So 7 times 2 is minus 14. Add another 8 gives me minus 22. and that's the right answer. Wants me to factorise, I factorise. But I haven't quite, have I? Because let's go through all this. Because what I did is I factorised ignoring these y's here. The nice thing is I can basically now just put the y's back in. It's exactly the same as with the x's. I'm just using y's instead. Either way, 7x minus 8y, x minus 2y. Next and final question today. The gradient of the curve C is given by this thing here. Mark says that the tangent of A is parallel to the line of this. Explain why Mark is incorrect. Okay, so I'm going to start by clearly showing I know the gradient of this is minus 2. And then I've got the obvious point that there's no point A given in the question. So I'm wondering where this is a second error. The gradient of the curve is given by, Mark says that the tangent at the point A. Okay, so maybe I have to show that A doesn't exist. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try and work out if 2x minus 3 squared can equal 2 minus 2. In other words, can I get that value? Of course I can't. There we go. Sorry, you saw me think out loud there. What's the first step if I'm trying to unwind this? The first step is to do the square root. I cannot square root a negative number, so therefore there are no solutions. Okay, that's what it is. That's a difficult question. So it was, I thought the question was going to be find the value and then show it's different. It's not. The question is, Mark thinks there's a line that has a gradient parallel to minus 2. In other words, gradient of minus 2. I'm showing that this can't have a value of minus 2 because the square root has no solutions. So I'm going to say square root negative. And so therefore, because no value will give me minus 2, there are no solutions, so Mark is incorrect. Wow. That got really tricky at the end, or at least it was tricky for me. Let me know if you got there in the end. Good mix of questions today. Do like, subscribe. See you tomorrow.